I'd like to welcome, I'd like to welcome to the board work session this morning. And Mary Sinkus is absent, and Jerry has her proxy. If anything, Jerry Hofer has her proxy in case something comes up. And Tia Bidwell is with us by video. Okay, Tom, do you want to?
First on the agenda of your board packet, you'll see the recommendation from the Rules and Regulations Committee regarding proposed changes to bylaw, Article 10, Section 2. This would require 2 readings. This would change it where making it very clear to our membership that the POA will not vote POA-owned lots. In previous votes, it used to be much more of a present issue. A couple of years ago, we had 700 lots. We're now well below 100 at this time. But we just wanted to reassure our membership. So this will go to a vote at the regular meeting this month, and then if it continues on at the pleasure of the board, then it will be enacted in the following month. The next item on the agenda is about an assessment increase campaign, but of critical importance. By passing this change to Article 10 at this time, it would be in place before the start of the new assessment vote. So there would not be an overlap. There should be no misunderstanding that these votes will absolutely not be cast and cannot be cast, assuming that the board approves these changes.
Just for clarification, the board has already stated publicly that we do not plan to vote these lots. This is simply putting it in writing and changing policy.
Correct. I mean, it was in the minutes last year, but so it was technically in writing. But this really makes it much more solid.
Any questions? Support to move forward. Support to move forward? Okay.
But it's not a vote, it's just support.
It's just a support to move forward.
We will vote on this next
Thursday, and for 2 weeks, the 2 readings.
Next up, you will see that we are seeking, on page 5 of your board packet, we're going for an assessment increase. We talked last year about going for this year, and so we're looking to do that. You'll see the critical dates are September 30th is when a member must be in good standing. October 9th is when the vote would begin. November 19th would be when the vote ends. And we will have a meeting at Reardon Hall at 6 p.m. to do that announcement. And January 1st, assuming that it gets approved, would be when the increase would kick in. The increase that we are proposing is an $11 increase for improved and a $2 increase for unimproved. We have a marketing piece that we've put together. This will be available on our website fairly soon. We had the staff member that is putting that together and arranging it on our website had a personal issue that has prevented that individual from working on it for a couple days, but that is now doing better, and so we'll be able to get this information up fairly soon. We're also going to have a Q&A section, so any questions that we receive, we'll answer those, and then we'll post those answers on our website, on our webpage. Also, Tammy is going through and setting up numerous meetings. My goal is to have 50 meetings before October 9th. She already has 25 confirmed and 21 on the hook. Several of those will be kind of open to the public. Some of the meetings are going to be like neighborhood meetings called by different residents. Some of them will be church meetings and golf club meetings and the wood carvers and so forth. But we will have open to the public meetings, and we'll get that information out and have it available on our website also. So we encourage our property owners to read through this document. It's a little bit lengthy, we understand that, but this is a comprehensive overhaul. And I think what you'll see when you're going through this is that the board has listened to many of the concerns expressed by our membership and has made modifications we really think that this plan is really solid and it has the support of the entire board.
Okay,
When,
go ahead.
when do you propose to circulate this to the membership, these sheets?
We will, it's going to start today. I have my first meeting today. And we should have this, I hope to have this available online today. I just want to give a little bit of wiggle room simply because we're dealing with a personal issue with our employees, getting that done.
Okay.
The overview that you gave us at our last meeting, has anything changed on that?
There's been a couple grammar changes, a couple wording. Steve made a suggestion that the one area on the back page it could be viewed as a double negative. So we changed that to eliminate. We don't want anybody to misread this in any way. So we made a couple modifications. Yesterday, after hours, I met with our member services team and presented the whole thing. They're the ones that get the most questions of all, and I really wanted to see what they had to say. They picked out a couple small nits, and we've made those changes. So we've had a lot of eyes that looked at this document, so I think we got it right.
But no number changes?
No number changes.
Two items. The board will be voting, if this is passed on the 19th, the board will be voting at the next board meeting to accept it.
Yes, the board will need to vote at the regular meeting a week from today, saying formally that they are going forward. It's a formal announcement that they're going forward and that the vote will start. And so you'll see there's a suggested motion at the bottom, and it gives the critical dates of October 9th and November 19th.
I'm talking about after November 19th.
I'm sorry.
If it's passed,
If
the
it's
board
passed,
needs to vote to
yes.
accept it.
So the board, this is the 19th of November is a Tuesday. The board will meet on that Thursday, the 21st. In order for an assessment increase to go through, it has to be, the membership has to have a 30-day notice. So the board would vote on the 21st, and then it would go into effect on January 1st. But I did not include that in here because I didn't want to get that out of something. It's got to be approved by the membership before we can vote on it.
I think probably the most important thing to be aware of this is we listened to the membership, what they wanted, what they felt some of the concerns were, and tried to address all the concerns. And I think the board has pretty well thought that we have addressed all the concerns that the general public has. I think it's an excellent plan.
I really think that we've hit the reset button on a lot of our fees that no longer made sense. I think the one that is the shining example of how our fee structure was what didn't make sense is our fitness memberships were priced at $225 for a year, yet you can go down to Planet Fitness for $120 for a year. And they're frankly are better than us. And for us to be priced at the higher rate, that just doesn't make sense. So that's a great example of us going through and fixing all these things and hitting the reset button. So I encourage our property owners to take the time. We apologize for it's a lengthy document, but it's a lot of changes. But it really, I think you're going to sit back when you get done reading it and you'll realize that we listened to the membership.
Any other comments from the board? Questions, concerns? If not, I would like to take a consensus vote, and this is no way binding, as to move it forward to next week with support. Okay, and he has a proxy, so it's
Great.
unanimous.
Great.
Okay,
But a formal vote will be taken next
correct.
week. On page 7, didn't have my glasses on. Page 7 of your board packet, you'll see an analysis on POA non-conforming lots. This was, Steve brought this question up, is, how are we doing? Are we continuing to make progress? And you'll see that, and at its worst, on December 31st of 15, the POA had 7,334 lots that were not paying anything. Now, a lot of people have asked the question, well, how many were improved versus unimproved? It's approximately 100 improved were included in that. The rest were unimproved. Also, on top of the 7,300 that we're not paying, the POA at that time owned approximately 700 lots. So we had about 8,000 lots that we're not paying. But fast forward to June 30th of 19, we've taken the non-performing lots from 7,300 down to 4,480. On top of that, we've taken the POA owned lots from 700 down to below 100. I think it's 80 right now. So we've made considerable strides, an improvement of almost 3,500. My math right? Yep. And also as a comparison, not picking on anybody, but we went online and looked at Hot Springs Village to see how they compare to us. And the non-performing plus the POA-owned lots, Hot Springs has 11,000 versus our 4,500. And they have 34,000 lots compared to our 39,000. So if you look at the total percentage, they have 33% non-performing compared to about 12% non-performing for us. We still have to work at it. The low-hanging fruit is gone. It's a grind, but the team has really done a great job. When I got here, we did not have a collections team. If you look at this graph, there was within 6 months there was a tremendous improvement just by bringing on staff. And I went to the board at that time and I said, I don't care what the budget is, we need to hire staff, we need to start collecting on this, and they supported that decision 100%, which I really appreciate. And you can see a couple of years later that decision by the board paid off.
Not to pick on Hot Springs Village again, but it is deplorable. We do own a lot there. And part of the discrepancy, apples to oranges, is their assessment is $40 a month for unimproved lots, and around $70 a month for improved lots. So that's that disparity.
I have a question. We realize that a lot of these lots that are in arrears, we haven't had contact with those people, owners, for years.
Well, we try.
What can we do? I mean, what steps are there available to try to even find the current owners?
And we do that. So we have a computer system that allows us, lack of a better term, to do skip tracing. To try and track down people. But remember, in some cases, you're dealing with maybe a third generation. Grandma and grandpa purchased the lot, and it's down to the grandkids, and the grandkids have never even been to Bella Vista. So there's some issues where the title is questionable as to who owns it and so forth. So we have to do a lot of tracking them down. So it's not an easy thing. So, on the flip side, we still have 4,500 property owners that are obligated to pay their assessments and are not. So we need to continue to get that number down. The industry standard is between 15 and 20% non-performance. So at 12%, we're doing really good. So I'm very pleased with that. But the team has a lot of different ways. Through our searches, we can find email addresses and we can contact the people. Sometimes, unfortunately, when people move, I think in many cases people forget to tell the POA. They tell everybody, they tell their bank, they tell the insurance company, but they forget to tell the POA. And so we have to hunt them down. So you'll notice that when you go into member services, one of the first questions they ask is, hey, let's verify your contact information. And you'd be amazed at how often people forget to tell us about a new email address, a new telephone number, a new mailing address, and so forth.
So, I'm assuming that if they're not paying the POA, they're not paying the real estate taxes.
They probably are not.
So the county collector is looking for these people also.
That's correct.
Is there any kind of cooperation that can be done? I mean, does he have any kind of clout to find people that we don't have?
I would
Or is
say
he
that
even looking for them?
I think our ability to find them is probably better than theirs. We use a lot of, we have a lot of ability now. In some cases, it's just very difficult, and we put a lot of people on payment plans. We work with property owners if they put, we have a lot of people on payment plans just to make it as easy as possible, and we try and get in touch with those people as quickly as possible. To steal words from Steve, I think he said the other day, it's a lot easier to get $100 out of someone that's late than $500 to say. I would rather get them at 100. It's a lot easier to catch up at that point than it is when they are at 500.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things you can do once you find them. But if it's, as you say, if it's third generation, if it's the grandkids who have had this inadvertently passed to them and they had never been to Arkansas, they've never heard of all of this stuff, they don't know they own it.
But in some cases, that's true. And what we do is our staff also goes through, and anything that is late, we do an assessment. Does it make sense for us to foreclose on that lot? If it's a really small lot that's really steep and not anywhere close to a sewer system, if we foreclose on that lot, we may sell it, we may not. And if we don't, then we're paying property taxes. Property taxes on these lots are about $30 a year, which isn't much. But when you times that, a couple of years ago when the POA owned 700 lots, all of a sudden it becomes real money. It's impactful. So if the lot is, in our view, sellable, we'll go after them a lot quicker. So we just had a judicial sale just last week. We were foreclosing on 25 lots, and 17 of those lots were purchased at the county steps. And so those are now dues paying. They'll soon become dues paying lots. We have 8 lots that we feel are buildable, and we hopefully will be able to sell those, within a reasonable amount of time. And that's how you're seeing these since 2016 and 2017, where the improvement is much more gradual. It's these types of things. We just, with the judicial sale, we now have 17 lots that are now going to start paying us. Why would they pay, one lot went for $4,000. Why would you pay $4,000 and not pay your assessments? I would hope you wouldn't. It would be a pretty poor decision. But, it's 17 here, it's calling and getting someone on a payment plan, it's all that little effort, it's a lot of effort, but you see a gradual reduction.
Are there, on these judicial sale lots, are there any deed restrictions, like for the first year, the previous owners who forfeited could come back and cough up the money?
That's a great question for Doug. Doug's on vacation this week, and he's taking his soon-to-be freshman son to college. That might be a question for Doug. There are notification requirements. I can't state all those off the top of my head, but we have to give them multiple notices. Keep in mind that while we had a judicial sale just last week, the process starts between 6 and 9 months prior to, with all the notifications that are required by state. You have to give a person every opportunity to pay.
So if those notices that you're giving to people, the postman brings them back to you undeliverable.
And that's part of the reason, and this goes back to other things that we do is by sending out all our bills on the assessment, first-class mail, when they come back in, our member services team goes through, okay, so that address is bad, now we need to go search and see if we can find a better one. They'll call, in some cases, the person will say, oops, I forgot to tell you that I moved, and we'll update it. There's a lot of hands working all together in unison to get these numbers down as they have. It's a large undertaking. It would be wonderful if everybody was on auto deposit. We could just, but that's just not the case. We have to hunt them down sometimes.
Of the 4,480 big lots, do we have any idea how many individuals that is? I mean, some are obviously multiple lots.
Yeah, I did not run that stat. Yeah, we have some that are multi-lot owners.
The ones we go after first.
Oh, yeah. We go by dollar amount. And our team is pretty politely aggressive, and that's really what they're instructed to be. You know, we don't want them to be rude. We don't want them to be, you get a call. You always read articles about people getting calls from credit card companies and how rude they are. We don't want to be that, but we do want to be aggressive, and we want to make sure they have an obligation. Whether their grandparent purchased it and they have no interest in it, there's a legal obligation to pay their assessments until we go after them.
Any other questions?
Next on your agenda is on page 9. For board members, these numbers are slightly changed. We have updated information since the last time we saw these. But you'll see that we have, for the water department, one of our capital projects, Britain Circle. We hit rock, and more rock. And the cost of the project went up significantly. So on a capital project, if it is 10% or if it's under 10% over the original amount that was approved by the board, no additional notification needs to be given to the board according to policy. This one is at 27% over. So we do need the board next week to vote on this. The auditors require this to confirm that we're in compliance with our own government documents. But you'll see that you can't, if you're doing Britain Circle, you can't, when you realize it's going to be over budget, you can't all of a sudden stop and curtail the project. You still got to get the project done. And in most cases, these are pipe replacements where the pipes are the oldest, where we're getting the most amount of breaks and so forth. It wouldn't surprise me. Usually it's rocks that cause the pipes to break, and there's so much, so they select for replacement pipes that break a lot and disrupt service. It doesn't surprise me to a certain extent that they find a lot of rock because, that's probably why they're there in the first place, because of all that rock. So in Dwayne's cash forecast for the rest of the year, he did incorporate, he was aware of these additional expenses when he was doing those forecasts for the board. That paragraph was in there. In the previous version, because Dwayne was out, it was incorporated.
Any questions on that? David?
Question for Jim, maybe. How long do you think that vein has been in the ground there?
In the late 60s, the Cooper Road stretch was one of the very early, in fact, it was the first subdivision, number 1. So that entire stretch, and the Britain Circle, I think, those townhomes were put in the very early 70s, wasn't it? Perhaps late 60s even, Britain Circle.
Years in back.
60 years on rock.
Yeah, that's a really good point. 60 years rock moved back and forth, it gets shifting, and then that's where you get the breaks.
Not meaning to knock anybody or Jim or the Cooper people, but we're probably doing a better job of putting the pipe in there now and bending it properly. There are industry standards that we probably have to follow to make it. And our engineer went with it.
And I think the standards have improved over the years.
They have, they really have. And the pipe quality's improved too.
That's right.
And in no defense, but every contract I've ever been familiar with, golf courses, buildings, streets, water lines, sewer, all contracts have a rock clause in them. And in Arkansas, it can be a pretty horrific rock clause, as it turned out here and on many of the other amenities.
Rocks in Arkansas.
Any other questions? Do you have any questions?
No, but just a comment on that. Do we need to clarify to the members that this is water department finances, this is not POA finances? We are just approving it, but it's not money POA is spending.
A great point. It is a water department expense. It's still controlled by the POA. It's all the same company, but we do assign that expense specifically to the water department. Yes, you're correct. You're correct.
Any others? Okay, moving forward.
Update on ARCO sale. We anticipate that the sale will go through on Monday, this coming Monday. I think it's the 19th, if I'm not correct. I'm correct. Everything is going along. We do not anticipate any additional delays. Regarding Birchdale Bridge, the golf committee had a meeting yesterday. There were approximately 50 residents in attendance. We also had the engineer from Craft and Toll there to answer questions and so forth. The golf committee, they want to make the right decision, not the quick decision, and they want to investigate it further. They want to look into the possibility of could we reroute and not reroute letter 9 in such a way that we would not have to utilize the bridge that is damaged. So the golf committee has tasked Daryl Muldoon with investigating that. He's probably going to use the services of David Welchel. He'll also use our safety coordinator, the POA safety coordinator, to ensure that any solution that we come up with is a safe one. And then we'll report back to the golf committee at the September meeting. I applaud them for not racing to a quick decision, because sometimes when you race to a quick decision, it's not necessarily the best decision. Keep in mind that if it's decided to repair, it's a 9-month process, with permitting taking the largest amount of time, and replace is 18 months. I think Jerry Barron yesterday, I'm going to quote him as saying, if it takes us 6 months to make a good decision, then we should take 6 months to make a good decision.
And I'd like to mention I attended the meeting, and it brought out some pretty good points for replacing the bridge, some of it practical, some of it emotional. But I'd especially like to thank Susan Nuttall for bringing up the counterpoint of the history of the problems with the Sugar Creek Valley and the flooding potential, the flooding reality, and the diminishing golf play. So thank you, Susan.
One item to bring up is it appears that the cart path from 2 down is the biggest problem. It can't be a 2-way cart path
Yeah,
under the circumstances.
I want to give Daryl an opportunity to research the problem, and maybe we can come up with some sort of signaling system. We want to make sure we can get carts up there. We do know this is some of the private carts, some of the older private carts are not going to make it up that hill. I am very very concerned about that. Maybe we can make some allowances. If you want to use your own private cart, then use ours. Don't use that. You know, we'll figure something out. But we need to make sure that whatever we come up with is safe. Because anytime you have opposing traffic and the ball going the opposite direction of what you're traveling, that can be a dangerous situation.
In that regard, when you talk about some older private cars that might not make it up that hill, if we can get this assessment increase passed, in that we are paying the same for a private car trail fee as you do an annual seat lease, there's no reason we couldn't require that our cars would be used on that golf course, because in that case, what difference does it make?
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
But I think it's still a little bit risky, and we'll have to look at it from a liability standpoint, see how that's going to work. Not only from flying golf balls, but from golf carts going up and down. You know how people don't. They disregard the rules as it is. There'll be somebody that says, I can make it up there, before the other guy leaves the tee.
Yeah, and we don't want someone sliding back down, getting into an accident. Also concerned if it's raining. So there's a couple different things that we want to look at. So I would repeat Jerry's statement from yesterday. If it takes us 6 months to make a good decision, then we should take the 6 months. Hopefully it won't take that long. But I'd rather make a good decision than a quick decision.
Comments, questions? Okay.
Trafalgar site, not too much going on. The phase 2 plans are due to ADQ September 8th. If you drive by, you can see little bits of green coming up as we irrigate the site. We were required by ADQ to get 80% coverage, so we'll see how we do. The team did a great job putting in the irrigation system. We just need to make sure we get some nice warm weather for that grass to come up. Not much to report. We did a drone a week ago, but not too much to update on that. With regards to the west side stump dump, the last time we spoke, we talked about that we are proposing, based upon the site visit from ADEQ, we are proposing to reduce the footprint at the west side from 10 acres down to 7 or 6.5. And we sent in a formal request to ADEQ, and we're still waiting for a response. And I will remind everybody that the lead time on purchasing the geosynthetic clay liner is many months. I originally was optimistic that we would get this project completed by the end of this year. I don't think I can be that optimistic anymore. I think it may be the first quarter of next year.
Is that no failing on our part, just waiting on ADEQ?
We're just waiting on ADEQ, and not casting stones in any way. We're just waiting on them to give us the final answer. Because if it's 7 acres instead of 10 acres, that's a significant reduction. When you're talking, I think the estimate was $320,000 for 10 acres. Cut down to 7, where the number's going to come down. And we don't want to be in a situation where we order, because we're getting a price discount by doing everything at one time. So if we put in an order for 7 and then ADQ comes back and says, no, it's got to be 10 or 8 or whatever, we're not going to get the same price break on that second order. So the number would increase. So I think it's just better to just wait until they give us the final answer. Once they give us the final answer, then we'll get the job done.
But all the measuring and the work has been done to show that it can be reduced to 7 acres.
Yeah, they did. They were out here. ADQ was. They did pilot sampling. We FTN did pilot sampling to find the edges, and that's how they were able to determine that it's 7 acres instead of 10 acres.
And ADQ's aware of that.
They're aware of that, and the meeting went well, and we're very optimistic that they're going to give us the go-ahead. But until they give us the sign of approval, we got to wait.
questions? Anything else before we go to open forum? Okay, open forum at this time. Anybody have a comment they'd like to make?
I'm Bruce Portello, 3 Kirk Circle, Bella Vista. I reference a letter to the editor by Dave Barfield, July 24th of this year. The POA General Manager recently proclaimed, "We saved the POA," in quotes, presumably referring to extinguishing the Stump fire. It's not clear if he was referring to himself, the board, POA staff, or all of the above as saviors, but the question remains, has the POA been saved and from what? To begin with, Tom Judson's not the General Manager, he's the Chief Operating Officer. We saved the POA. The correct quote was, "We saved the POA from bankruptcy," and that possibly is true. Dave goes on to say, to be clear, the POA has been in serious financial trouble for a long time. Dave and I must be looking at different financial statements. If you go back 10 years, and even longer, but 10 years, 9 of those 10 years, revenues exceeded expenses, and we maintained significant cash balances on our financial statements. Obviously, 2018 was different because we had expended the majority of those cash balances in greatly improving the facilities around the village. And I'll let it slide, if you will, at that, but his comments, as far as I'm concerned, I won't say the word. And lastly here, I would like to commend Ralph Patterson, who wrote in the next week's letter to the editor, to the Vista, his comments in response to Dave Barfield, and I think they are well taken. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, before announcements, is there anything else that needs to be brought to the attention? Okay, Board of Directors meeting Thursday, August 22nd at 6 o'clock here in the boardroom. Board of Directors GM meeting will be Tuesday, September 10th. Now that's a change of date. That's a proposed meeting at 4:30 in the boardroom. So please notice that time and date will change. And then the work session next month is the 19th. The 2020 Assessment Increase Community Meeting is September 24th at 6 o'clock in Reardon Hall. So that will be our first community meeting in general. Will be September 24th. Board of Directors is Thursday, September 26th. If no further business, we stand adjourned.